It's 2 a.m., and you're a black man on a dark highway near a Mississippi sundown town driving 40 tons of Detroit steel. If you got exhausted, you couldn't pull over at a truck stop. If you wanted coffee, you couldn't walk into a roadside diner. You were locked inside your cab. Suddenly, behind you, you see red and blue lights flashing in your rearview mirror. The highway patrolman is pulling you over because he knows that you're isolated, unarmed, and carrying a pocket full of cash to pay for diesel. This isn't a truck stop. It's a shakedown. I'm your host, Country Boy. This is One My Black History, and this is the story of how black truck drivers took a cheap $150 radio and used it to outsmart the highway. To understand how a radio became a matter of life and death, you have to look at the economics. During the 1970s, long-haul trucking was one of the very few jobs where a black man could make serious cash without a college degree. We're talking about upwards of $20,000 a year. In today's money, that would be $130,000. If you could drive a rig, fix a diesel engine on the side of the road, and deliver your cargo on time, you could buy a house, you could send your kids to school, you could build real wealth for your family. But making that money meant driving an 18-wheeler through hundreds of miles of extremely hostile territory. Just think about the logistics of driving a long-haul truck while black during this time period. If you were an independent owner-operator, your route might take you straight through the Deep South or the rural Midwest, right through counties where the Ku Klux Klan or some corrupt local sheriff ran that town. The threat was both physical and financial. White business owners, racist locals, and the police recognized that these black drivers were extremely vulnerable. They were hundreds of miles away from their neighborhoods. Walking into the wrong door in the middle of nowhere to use the restroom could get you beaten or killed. The system was absolutely designed to keep you isolated in your cabs and afraid to stop. Then the pressure escalated. In 1973, a massive oil crisis hit the United States. Gas prices exploded. Fuel shortages had cars lining up for blocks. To save fuel, the federal government dropped the national speed limit to just 55 miles an hour. For independent truckers, time is money. A lower speed limit meant they were losing money by the hour. The crisis turned black truck drivers into massive targets. Corrupt police departments, who black drivers called smokies, knew exactly who they were looking for. They knew black drivers had strict deadlines they needed to meet, had highly valuable cargo in their trailer, and more importantly, they carried hundreds of dollars in cash to pay for fuel. Police used that new speed limit like a weapon. They set up bogus speed traps behind billboards and medians and empty highways. They routinely pulled over black drivers in the middle of nowhere, wrote bogus tickets, and they cited them for fake safety violations. It was a legalized shakedown. The police used their badges to drain the drivers' bank accounts and keep them in their place. So black drivers pivoted. They had to find a way that they could communicate and protect each other without the police catching on. The solution was the Citizens Band Radio, or CB. For white drivers, the CB was a toy. It was a way to pass the time, complain about the weather, flirt with each other. For black drivers, it was a warning system. The true genius of the radio was the anonymity. When you spoke over a CB radio, no one knew your face, no one knew your race. Black drivers could use fake names they called handles. A racist cop sitting at a speed trap listening to the radio had absolutely no idea that the guy who was calling himself Night Rider or Midnight Express was a white cowboy or a black driver. They also engineered specific slang. They created a language that sounded like complete nonsense to the cops listening in, but gave perfect real-time instructions to the other drivers. They didn't just say there were police hiding ahead. They said there was a smoky taking pictures at the 42-yard line. That meant there was a cop running a radar at mile marker 42. A bear in the air meant a police helicopter was tracking speed through the sky. And Evel Knievel meant a motorcycle cop was hiding on the on-ramp. Black drivers used this language to act as real-time scouts for each other. The CB radio became a survival guide through the airwaves. It was a real-time green book. If a driver found a diner that actually let him use the restroom and served him a hot meal, he would immediately broadcast the location to the group. If inspectors at a weigh station were specifically targeting black drivers, he would drop that warning over the frequency. Additionally, if the main highway channel, Channel 19, got too crowded or they figured the cops were listening too closely, drivers would tell the group to drop down and switch to Channel 14 so they could speak more privately. They literally escorted each other through the segregated South without ever having to look each other in the eye. Yet, they didn't just talk, they mobilized. If a driver was entering a dangerous county, he didn't do so alone. They used the radio to link up 4, 10, sometimes 20 trucks rolling in a massive line. This wasn't a parade, it was a moving convoy. If a corrupt cop tried to pull over one black driver and harass him, the entire convoy pulled over on the shoulder with him. Thousands of pounds of Detroit steel to physically box each other in. That sent a physical message to the police that if you mess with one of us, you have to deal with all of us. Yet, by the late 1970s, Hollywood saw the massive convoys and heard about the slang on the radio. They realized they could package it up and sell it to white audiences. They completely erased the racial terror. They erased the black men who built a system to stay alive. Pop culture turned the CB radio into a fun symbol of freewheeling white rebels. So at this point, you're asking yourself, why have we never talked about this before? Like almost everything black folks have invented, the establishment eventually realized how valuable it was and stole it. By the late 1970s, popular white culture caught wind of this underground CB radio network. Hollywood saw the massive convoys and heard about the incredibly cool slang and realized they could package and sell it to the white masses. So they commercialized it. They completely stripped out the racial terror. They erased the black survivalists who built the network to try to stay alive, and they turned it into a fun, rebellious aesthetic for white actors. In 1975, a song called Convoy hit #1 in the music charts. In 1977, Smokey and the Bandit starring Burt Reynolds made $300 million. Popular culture turned CB radio into the symbol of white, freewheeling rebels out on the open road. They made millions of dollars off the slang and the convoy tactics and completely ignored the black people who actually used those tactics to avoid getting lynched. In the end, it is incredibly easy to look back at the 70s and think CB radios were just noisy, vintage pop culture trend, like bell bottoms or disco. But the next time you see an old movie with a trucker talking slang on the radio, I want you to remember the black truth, that these radios weren't just chatter. It was a hidden communication network. It was absolute proof that when the system tried to isolate us, exploit us, and break black folks, we never folded. We took what was available to us and we adapted and flipped it and built something new that allowed us to fight right out in the open. Thank you. I'm your host, Country Boy. This has been One My Black History, and this is the story of the Black CB radio. This is dope. This is really dope. It harkens back to the Green Book. It also reminds me a bit of Nolan Wells, because the whole thing about that was having a network that took care of you when you were isolated. So it kind of gives vibes of both of those. Anyway, I would like to thank all my day ones, all my financial contributors, especially my foundational members. I have a new foundational member. You can find them at the top. You can find them at the very top of this new list. If you don't see your name in your list and you're a paid subscriber, I would love for you to reach out and to let me know. I want to thank every single one of my paid contributors, all my day ones, everybody who listens to every single video. I love every single one of you. Peace.